Motion sickness warning! Sethos is a character that can do a lot of charge attack spam really fast. Doing a lot of charge attacks really fast also causes the camera to move really fast. If you're at all sensitive to any, camera movement, motion sickness stuff, anytime I do a showcase, you might just want to skip ahead a couple seconds. Sethos. It's Sethos time, baby. Well, I should swap to a Sethos team first. Alright, whatever. This is gonna have to work for now. It's Sethos time! Welcome to the Sethos video, everybody. So, the 5.1 Phase 2 banners got revealed, and we found out that Hoyo didn't do something stupid like locking Sethos only to Cloran banners. So, now that my second favorite short Electro male carry from the Sumeru Desert is back, and he's actually on a banner that people will want to pull on this time, let's just do the same thing we did last time. Show off the kit, show off some of the mechanics, show off some of the teams, and maybe you can make some team suggestions of your own in the comments. Getting right into his kit, Sethos is Hoyo's newest attempt at making a fun charge attack bow user, and I for one think that they've actually succeeded this time around. The thing is, Sethos differs from other charge attack carries because he actually has two different ways to access his charge attack damage. And these two different methods of getting your charge attack damage will actually change a lot of things about Sethos. It can change how you gear him, it can change what teams you might want to use him on. Let me just show off what I'm talking about here. So the first way that Sethos can get this charge attack damage is actually the weird one that's very different from other charge attack units, but... Okay, leave me alone. But it's a more traditional design for a unit, so I'm going to show it off first. Can you please leave me alone? So the first way you can use Sethos is simply by getting his burst and using it. And it will convert his normal attacks. Okay. Did you have to teleport away? The first way you can access his charge attack damage is just by using his burst, and it will convert his normal attacks into infused electro attacks. And the damage of those attacks, it's a flat amount of damage added to each arrow based on Sethos' elemental mastery. It's also noteworthy that while Sethos' burst infuses his normal attacks, it also converts their damage to charged attack damage. So even though you're using normal attacks, he will benefit from effects that boost his charge attack damage. This is important for his team building, but we can get into that later. I realized it would be better to show off the other playstyle with non-boss enemies, so we're outside now. The other way you can access his charge attack damage is just doing what any other bow user would do, doing a normal charge attack. Except the thing about Sethos is his special charged attack, it takes a really long time to charge. And you don't want to have to wait that long every single time before you fire it off. Luckily, there's something Sethos can do to speed up this animation. Sethos' Ascension 1 passive lets him speed up the animation of this charge shot to just 0.3 seconds if he has 20 energy. Sethos' special charge shots costing energy is the reason why you have to split yourself between either doing his burst playstyle or his charge attack playstyle, because they both cost energy and you can only use your energy in one way. So let's just see this sped up charge attack animation in action. And actually, I'm going to cut and play the original charge attack animation over this audio of my voice talking, just so we can see the comparison. And then the sped up one. Yeah, it's a pretty big improvement, and if you have enough energy, Sethos can spam these pretty consistently. Okay. Well, I accidentally just did a level 1 charge attack there. That's something we can get into later because that's a bit of an advanced technique. But it's good that I reminded myself about it. You may have noticed me using my skill there. It is easily the simplest part of Sethos' kit. All it does, deal AoE electro damage. And if it caused a reaction, it generates a flat amount of energy for Sethos, along with just generating the particles it naturally would. To round off his talents, we can actually talk about the Sand King's Boon and why his normal attack scaling doesn't really matter that much. You can see here my Sethos has his normal attacks at level 8. That's actually not the smartest thing to do, but I like Sethos, so I did it anyways. You'll also notice that his Shadow Piercing Shot, which is the name of his special charge attack, it deals damage based on his attack and his elemental mastery. But that's not actually where you're going to get a majority of your damage on this skill, because his passive talent, the Sand King's Boon, adds an extra 700%, which is like 3 times the scaling of the original shot, to the first 4 shots that he fires in the rotation. This talent basically acts as a limiter on his power, because by limiting the highest scaling to just 4 shots, you can't get insane amounts of value simply by spamming and spamming and spamming. And now that I'm done with his talents, I can start to talk about some of the differences between his 2 playstyles. So, the other thing you might have noticed is that I have obviously chosen my camp. My normal attacks are level 8, and my burst is level 1. I don't use Sethos' burst at all. And let me just show off why that is. We're going to get into the exact reasoning of this later into the guide, but Sethos' burst playstyle is the numerically superior one. His burst scaling has a higher EM scaling than his charge attack does, except the thing about his burst playstyle... I'm actually going to run away from these slimes for a second. Because your burst adds a flat amount of damage to your normal attacks without caring about their scaling, to maximize damage, you don't care about having high scaling attacks, you just care about getting as many attacks out as you can. And luckily, Sethos' normal attack combo has a double shot right in the beginning. His first normal attack is a quick single shot, and his second is a quick double shot. But his third normal attack, which is the end of his combo, is a very slow... Okay, maybe I shouldn't have done the event this morning. So his third normal attack is a really slow jump. And because it's so slow, you basically never want to see it. Where other bow characters like Fischl can do aim shot cancels, which resets their normal attack combo. Sethos, you can't see it, but I'm going to try to show it off anyways. The thing about Sethos is that when he's in his burst, I'm trying to do a charge attack, he just can't. You just cannot do it. It's only once I'm out of my burst state that I can access the aimed mode again. So, because Sethos can't do charge attack cancels, he has to do walk cancels, which are much more precise, because the thing about charge attacks... Okay. The combat music just like started for a second and then went away. I'm going to stop shooting in that direction. Charge shot canceling is easy because it's just press, press, hold. There's no timing to it. Walking doesn't take you out of animations like dashing does. For example, if I dash cancel, I can fire just the first shot of his second hit. Okay, well I did it kind of horribly there, but there we go. Just the first shot of his second normal attack animation, whereas I'm holding the walk button. Even holding the walk button, I'm locked into this animation if I'm spamming the normal attack button. So you have to do your 2 attacks, do a well-timed walk, and if you do that walk too late, he'll do his third charge attack. Or his third normal attack. It looks like a charge attack, it's so slow, and you'll lose out on a lot of damage and reactions. I was talking for like another 3 minutes, and I forgot to hit record, so it's nighttime now. So that's his burst attack combo, and what was his charge attack combo again? Yes, Sethos' burst playstyle does more damage, but frankly, this is a game. Games are played to be fun. I don't think Sethos' burst playstyle is fun at all. I much prefer his normal charge attack playstyle, and you can see that reflected by my talents. I haven't leveled up his burst as, I guess, a matter of protest, because not only do I think that that's just a much less fun way to play him, but it removes a lot of the nuance in his kit that I think makes him interesting. let's just move on to his teams. Starting with this one I have here. This is an Aggravate team, and to explain an Aggravate team is really more to explain Fischl. I did it again. I talked for a while. I checked. I talked for a while and I didn't hit record, but let's just start it again. When you hit an enemy with Dendro and Electro, they will become quickened, and they have this green lightning aura around them. And then when you hit them with either a Dendro and Electro attack, that attack will get a portion of damage added to it based on your character's level and elemental mastery. Whether your character is Electro or Dendro determines which reaction you trigger. Dendro is spread, and Electro is quicken, or aggravate. Okay, well I said it wrong, and the guy's dead now. But the Electro one is. But the Electro one is aggravate. Because aggravate and spread both add flat amounts of damage based on your character's level and elemental mastery, you want to prioritize not single big hits, but applying as much element as you can and getting as many reactions as you can. Which is where Fischl comes in. So Fischl has this fun little talent that she unlocks at Ascension 4 called Undone Be Thy Sinful Hex. I had to make sure I was still recording there. I still am. It basically states that whenever Oz is on field and your character triggers an Electro-related elemental reaction, Oz hits them with a lightning bolt for 80% damage called Thundering Retribution. The name isn't really important. I don't know why I said it. I just think it's cute. So this video also secondarily acts as my thesis as to why Fischl is better than Xiangling, because this ability is ridiculously broken for one of the same reasons that Xiangling's Pyronado is ridiculously broken. It has no internal cooldown, meaning that every time you hit with Thundering Retribution, it can trigger a reaction. So in Aggravate teams, you will have Electro on-fielders doing as many reactions as they possibly can to maximize their aggravate damage onto enemies that are quickened and would take aggravate damage from any external Electro damage. This thing reacts every single time it hits. And if you build Fischl right, this can be hitting upwards of like 15 to 20,000 damage. You get these procs up to 2 times a second. It is a ridiculous amount of damage. This ability by itself basically warps every Aggravate team into who can trigger the most Fischl A4 procs. Because the original damage of the hit that reacted doesn't matter, only Fischl stats matter. As long as you're doing stuff to get reactions, you will get reasonable damage in Aggravate teams. It really doesn't even matter what Electro carry you're playing. As long as you're getting consistent reactions, you can get decent damage. Which Sethos, it's kind of interesting the way this passive applies, because his Burst Infusion, it works by regular internal cooldown rules. Meaning, actually, what are regular internal cooldown rules? ICD, Genshin, what's the time? I know it's 3 hits. Is it 2 seconds? 2.5 seconds. Meaning that he will only apply Electro on every 3rd hit, or if 2.5 seconds pass between hits. His charge attack is actually exempt from this. It, like most charge attacks in the game, has no ICD and will apply element every single time it hits. While the overall damage of doing charge shots compared to doing his burst playstyle may be lower, you actually end up triggering reactions a lot more frequently, meaning that you're activating this ability a lot more frequently. So while I haven't done the actual calculations, it's possible Sethos does more damage with the charge attack playstyle in a team with Fischl, because Fischl is getting more Ascension 4 procs. And talking about sacrificing Sethos' damage to get as many reactions as possible, let's just take a look at how my Sethos is built. The Slingshot is what most people have been recommending for Sethos. Looking at its stats and passive kind of explain why. It has a fairly hefty crit rate substat along with a 60% damage bonus to normal and charge attacks that hit within 0.3 seconds of being fired, which Sethos, who shoots instantly traveling lasers, this passive applies to that. And because Sethos is a unit who doesn't have a lot of attack scalings, he mostly scales with Elemental Mastery, the low base attack on the weapon doesn't really matter as much. So this is a really good weapon where he basically can use all the upside and gets next to none of the downsides, right? That's why everyone's been suggesting it so much, right? I mean, you might have seen, but I am not using the Slingshot. I have been using Favonius on him. I personally cannot stand the Slingshot on Sethos. A lot of how I built my Sethos comes from this Soluna video. I'm probably going to link it somewhere. I don't know where I'll put it. But in this video, he showed me the goddamn light. Because at the time that Sethos came out, most of what you could find were just guides to maximize his damage, and they all said the same thing. Tighnari's signature bow is technically better, but if you don't have that, and you know, who the hell actually has Tighnari's signature bow? If you don't have that, just use the Slingshot. It's way better than anything else that you could get your hands on. Like, this thing outperforms Battle Pass weapons on Sethos. Don't get me wrong, the Slingshot is fucking crazy. I just don't like using it. I am also crazy, so you know, that may explain some things. But when Sethos came out, that's all you could find. Guides would say use the Slingshot and use... Well, okay, I've already spoiled the surprise, but use Wanderer's Troop was the recommendation, because that also increases Elemental Mastery by 80, which is a stat Sethos uses a lot, increases charge attack damage by 35%. That's all the damage that Sethos is doing. It seems like a set perfectly made for him. But I have him on Thundering Fury. Yo, so just what the heck is going on? What the heck is going on here? I might cut that out. That was stupid. This is not a normal Sethos build, but frankly, this is the only one that I bother playing, and I think it makes him a lot more fun. If I keep making more videos on this channel, you'll find out pretty fast that I'm a complete sucker for Thundering Fury. I mean, you know, not to be the third or fourth guy that just thinks Thundering Fury is the coolest thing in the universe, but to be fair, Thundering Fury is the coolest thing in the universe. Anyways, enough of all that. I'm just going to show off this team. I'm like completely f***ing up my rotation here, but this goes to show that this is just a really flexible team. Get him! Oh, come on, Oz. So that was Sethos' charge attack spam, and now I can explain a little bit as to why I'm using the particular equipment that I use. But in it, he says that Oeneas is a really unique unit because he has an interesting relationship to energy recharge. Every other unit in the game has a flat energy requirement. Taking Kirara, for example, she has a burst with an energy cost of 60 and a cooldown of 15 seconds. This means that if you were to perfectly optimize your artifacts, the ideal energy recharge you want to have with Kirara is the one that gets her from exactly 0 energy to exactly 60 energy in exactly 15 seconds. It doesn't hit harder or have a faster cooldown if you get over 60 energy. It's just ready when it's ready. Conversely, if you have less energy recharge than you need and you're getting less than 60 energy in those 15 seconds, then it's just useless. She just basically doesn't have a burst. Because Sethos has a way of consistently spending high amounts of energy on a skill that doesn't have a cooldown, he can make full use of however much energy he gets throughout a rotation. So back to the Kirara example, it doesn't matter if she gets 60 energy, it doesn't matter if she gets 80 energy, it doesn't matter if she gets 200 energy. She will always be using the exact same burst a single time on that 15-second cooldown. Sethos, if he gets more energy than he needs for his burst, he can just use it for a charge attack. Sethos linearly gets more charge attacks based on how much energy he generates in a rotation. If you generate 60 energy, which is what his burst asks of you, you'll be able to do 3 charge shots. If you generate 80 energy, you'll be able to do 4 charge shots. If you generate 200, you'll be able to do 10 charge shots. I mean, you get the point. It's just simple algebra. But Sethos has a way to use all the energy that you funnel into him. And even though charge attack spam is made less effective by its damage being linked to this passive talent, because his special charge shots don't have ICD, it essentially amounts to putting a 20-point energy cost on Fischl's A4 passive. Because of that, this setup is meant to get as much energy as you can out of Sethos and spam as many charge attacks as you can, as you probably saw from the showcase. The Fav Warbow, does the Fav thing, and it just generates a shitload of extra energy for basically no extra cost, and it gives him a pretty hefty energy recharge substat, which makes all of this even easier to do. And the Thundering Fury set lets him reduce the cooldown of a skill and spam it more, obviously just generating more energy as normal, and generating more from the flat amount of grants. It also has some damage bonus for reactions, which is nice, I guess. But anyways, this is my Sethos. This is how I use him in most of my teams. And the good thing about Sethos is that even though he has pretty distinctly different playstyles, he generally can still slot into the same teams. But yes, this is my Sethos. I hope I haven't put you off too much, because I did talk a little shit on Wanderer's Troop and Slingshot and Burst Sethos. That's just me just expressing my own opinion. I personally don't find those types of build on Sethos fun. But what makes Sethos so great is that he is really, really customizable. There are a lot of different ways you can play him, and there are a lot of different teams that he can slot into, no matter how you want to play him. So you can just play with him yourself and figure out what playstyle is best for you. Okay, so we've talked a fair bit about Sethos and Fischl. Let's just run through Kirara and Shieldin, and then we can talk about some other stuff. Kirara is this team's Dendro Applier and Shielder. Sethos doesn't get a lot of interruption resistance, and he also really doesn't like to get interrupted. You can also see that when he charges his specialist charge attack, he can't move, he's locked in place. So basically, he really appreciates a shielder, and Kirara is a shielder and a Dendro Applier, both in one. She is fine at C0, but there is the caveat that her off-field application is tied to her C4. Without it, she can only ever apply Dendro while she's on field. Her C4 just makes it so that her shield does a little Dendro attack whenever allies that are protected by it hit enemies with normally charged attacks. So for Aggravate teams, you only really need a tiny bit of Dendro to be able to activate Quicken. And at C0, the Dendro you get from Kirara's skill and burst is usually enough for Sethos teams. One of the biggest differences between Sethos' playstyles, and one that I actually didn't really mention, is that if you use his normal charge attacks, Sethos has full swapping freedom. You can go between all your units in any order, it doesn't really matter, because at any time Sethos is able to pop onto the field, do a charge attack, and then pop right off. That's not true with his burst. His burst, it lasts 8 seconds, and this effect will be cancelled when Sethos leaves the field. So he doesn't get to keep his infusion if he swaps. This is relevant because with Kirara, at C0, Kirara only has on-field Dendro application. And because she applies Dendro through both her skill and her burst, she has enough Dendro to keep up Quicken for an entire rotation, with the caveat that you're going to have to swap back to her somewhere inside that rotation. And the thing about Burst Sethos is that because he loses his infusion when he swaps out, he doesn't work with C0 Kirara. And I'm talking about this in so much depth because, frankly, Kirara is just a really, really good unit for Sethos. She provides a lot of what he needs in the Dendro and the shielding, along with some minor buffs that are higher constellations. These two are basically my dream co-op combo. Whenever I'm limited to 2 units, these two come out. She does all these great things, and she still has a lot of synergy and utility at C0. It's just that she might feel a little more clunky to play, and you might have to switch up your play style. Other than that, Kirara is basically a mainstay in any Dendro-related Sethos teams. In my eternal struggle to prove myself wrong, I came up with this team that does not use Kirara. It's a Sethos Hyperbloom team. I probably am not going to talk about it very much, just due to the length of this video already. Maybe I'll make something dedicated about it in the near future, but it's pretty simple. Nahida gives you strong Dendro application. I originally only had Kokomi slotted because she's some of the only off-field hydro application you can get without using normal attacks. The same goes for Farina, and I can slot her because I have Kokomi's healing. If you're using Burst Sethos, you can obviously just use Xingqiu or Yelan for this team, or both, why not? But this is a team that you basically couldn't do without Kirara. As for replacements for Kirara, Dendro is a pretty flexible element, so most of these guys are kind of viable. The first obvious substitute is Baizhu. He's the only other Dendro shielder in the game, because he technically makes shields, but they're designed to break in one hit and only really give you interruption resistance. They're not actually meant to block damage, but it still works as a shield, so Sethos doesn't really care. As for things Sethos does care about, this shield doesn't have 100% uptime. It lasts for 14 seconds, and its cooldown is a lengthy 20. Kirara, on the other hand, 12-second shield duration. Her cooldown can vary based on whether you tap or hold it. The maximum is 12 seconds, so she has a minimum of 100% uptime. A maximum of 150? I don't know. Someone do the math for me in the comments. I'm not doing that. So number one, it doesn't have full uptime, and number two, it's attached to this big ass number, this fat 80 sitting right there. Kirara not only has a cheaper burst, but her shield isn't even on her burst, it's on her skill, so you don't need to build energy recharge on her at all. Whereas Baizhu, he would need upwards of 250 in this team. Yaoyao's strengths are pretty similar to Baizhu, but her weaknesses are pretty notably different. Her animations are a tad bit longer and she needs some more field time. She just doesn't have a shield at all, and that goes for the other two units, Nahida and Kole, that we're going to talk about. However, her off-field Dendro application is not only available from C0, unlike Kirara, but it's pretty decent. Kole I'll go over first because she really is just a much worse version of Nahida. I'm maybe being a little mean, I shouldn't say much worse, but she has the same issues. With both of them, you can get decent damage out of them. Nahida, you can get significantly higher damage, and of course her off-field application is very comfortable. She's Nahida. I don't have to sell you on Nahida. She might actually be why you're here. You might have been pulling for Nahida and just gotten a Sethos by accident. So you could use Nahida, but the thing about Aggravate teams, I tried to explain what I was talking about for 4 minutes straight, and then remembered that I'm making a video, and I'm playing a video game, and I can just show you what I'm talking about, so here we are. So the Quicken Aura, even though it says that the enemy has Dendro on them, the aura is unique. It's that they have green lightning on them. Whereas normally, when an enemy has Dendro on them, they have this leaf effect. Even though it says that it's normal Dendro, it's lying to you. That's not normal Dendro. That is a Quicken Aura. And basically, you can see it now, the Quicken Aura can coexist with other elements, including Dendro. And then, we can see that when the enemy had the Quicken Aura and the Electro Aura, when I applied Dendro, even though the Quicken Aura was there, I didn't get a spread. I first reacted with the Electro, and I only got the Quicken. Meaning, I didn't react with the Quicken Aura and didn't get the damage that I would have gotten from spread. And basically, the same thing goes the other way. Please don't pay attention to Nahida's health, nothing happened. And basically, this can happen the same in the other direction, where if you have your Quicken Aura and you're applying a lot of Dendro, your Quicken Aura and your Dendro Aura can exist at the same time, and when you hit that enemy with Electro, instead of aggravating, you'll just be quickening and you won't get your damage. So while you could play Nahida in Sethos teams, the high amount of Dendro she applies makes it difficult for characters to get past her Dendro Aura and through to the Quicken Aura. That's basically the same reason that you wouldn't want to be using Kole in Sethos teams, because Kole, I don't know if I'm going to keep the recording, but I basically said she's just a worse version of Nahida. Her unique strength lies in her burst, which attacks really fast and does a ton of Dendro application up front, but similarly to Nahida, the high amount of Dendro she applies can make it harder to get your aggravates off. And I'm just going to skip the rest of the Dendro units because they're all either on-fielders or they're burning units, so believe me, I tried to make Sethos work in burning very, very hard. My love for Emily knows no bounds, but frankly, I just think he applies too much Electro. I could talk about this. Maybe I'll talk about this in another segment. I don't know. Anyways, finishing off this Aggravate team, we have Xilonen. So Xilonen is just a generic res shred and buffer on this team. And in this slot, it's basically going to be her or one of the many Animo units holding VV. So this is, at least in my opinion, the main thing that Shilonen brings to the team is that by providing a better defensive core and letting Kirara build a little less HP, she can afford to drop to a 4-star buffing set like Instructor, which Sethos makes really good use of. And also Fischl does if you can get the buffs off in the right order, but we're not talking about you. This is a Sethos video. Okay, I'm setting my speaking tone. I'm getting into a speaking voice.
There's a lot of very fascinating
Sethos is too, I guess. I'm also
Makes me
stretching.
want to go study that.
Jesus Christ, I need to clean off my desk. Hello. This is from 2 days in the future. This should be the day that I'm posting the video if I can edit it and get it out on time. I have both amendments and apologies that I need to make. It's pretty much just to this team because Aggravate is easily Sethos' best archetype that allows him to shine the most. Anyways, first off, I would really just like to make an apology. Maybe you've already seen it here. I would like to make an official apology to the Slingshot users. I now see the light. Don't get me wrong, you still haven't gotten me with Wanderer's Troop, but I have somewhat seen the light with Slingshot. Charge shot spam is possible if you use Slingshot, but only if you plan your shots a lot more carefully, and also you have to have Fav on someone else on the team. It just doesn't have to be on Sethos. I still do really like Favonius on Sethos because putting it on him allows the team to just be a lot more, I guess, brain dead. The substat and particles it generates basically makes it impossible to ever run out of energy with him as long as you're hitting your shots, which not only helps the team to flow a little bit better, but it's a really big factor in overworld exploration. Because I don't know about you, but personally, I don't want to be batterying to kill level 90 Hilichurls. That being said, I get the hype now. And I'm probably going to record a little showcase just so I can prove that I actually know how to use this weapon. But basically, it's exactly as you think it is. You have to play a little smarter, funnel energy into Sethos a little better, so you can count on landing less but harder hitting shots. I think I'm just going to do it now to get it out of the way. Cool. So I don't know how clear it is to someone who hasn't played as much Sethos as I have, but to me that felt significantly slower. It was a lot less just spamming charge shots over and over and over and more planning when I want Sethos to be on field so I can maximize his damage, which absolutely can be fun in its own right, but it does require a lot more effort on the player's end. The only other thing I really wanted to talk about was regarding your res shred slot. Because Sethos double dips into elemental mastery scaling by both having it as a multiplier on his damaging talents and having it affect his reaction multipliers, he cares about Sucrose's EM sharing way more than he cares about Kazuha's damage buffing. And outside of what stats they buff, Kazuha and Sucrose are basically the same unit. They do have a few small differences that only tend to matter when you're really getting into the nitty-gritty details of things. And Sucrose buffing EM is so significant that I genuinely don't even think those differences are worth going over. And this isn't to say that if you only have Kazuha, you need to get Sucrose so you can make Sethos work. It's just to say, if you have Kazuha and you have Sucrose, just use Sucrose. You can also use any other animal option, but generally, as long as it's not Sucrose or Kazuha, it'll perform about the same. So the top 2 picks for this slot are either Sucrose or Shilonen, depending on the content you're doing. Shilonen is more single target oriented, whereas Sucrose is much better in AoE. And because I've been playing with this team for the past few days, I've realized something else that I wouldn't have otherwise. She's not only better in Overworld because of her easier setup. Oh, hello, who are you? But she's also a best in slot in Overworld because she has way better exploration capabilities than anybody else that could go in this slot. Before getting Shilonen, I actually wouldn't really run this team in Overworld very much because neither Kazuha or Sucrose have horizontal movement capabilities. So all that I was stuck with was Kirara's little... And don't get me wrong, Kirara's cat box is fine, but it's not very fast. Shilonen just basically gets a... Shilonen basically just gets to sprint without using stamina, so... She's nice. And another thing, because she likes to hold Favonius by default, she's a pretty good battery if you want to go for Slingshot Sethos, whereas Sucrose and Kazuha are either not holding Fav or more concerned about getting their own burst. Shilonen is pretty free to give everything she generates just straight to Sethos. Alright, so that's most of what I wanted to talk about for Sethos' Aggravate teams. So I think I'm just going to walk around and see if I can think of anything more that I want to talk about. I didn't even know that could happen. Was that just me? I'll have to watch the recording. He just like appeared out of the sand pile. I thought you needed to hit them with Animo. What? Okay, so I remembered something. I remembered something that I need to talk about, which is very, very good, which is level 1 charge attacks that I think I promised I was going to talk about earlier. So the thing about Sethos is that he doesn't just have his special charge attack. Obviously. He has the normal charge attack that every bow user has, and his special charge attack is just the second charge level of that. So if you fire before you're done charging, you can fire a level 1 arrow. Now, this arrow doesn't have any special scalings or properties. If we go look at his skill, aimed shot charge level 1, it's only attack percent. And even though we have more than 20 energy and should pretty much immediately charge a special charge shot, if you do a very short hold of your charge attack, you can still fire a level 1 charge shot really, really quickly. And we can also check that in his talents, his level 1 charge shots get sped up the same way that his level 2 charge shots do, but they only consume 50% of the energy that is used to speed them up. So these level 1 charge shots, they're harder to pull off and they deal less damage, but they, like his special charge shots, share the property of not having a cooldown. They apply their element every single time they're hit, and therefore you can get a Fischl proc every single time you use a level 1 charge shot. I'm going to try to show it off here, but it's kind of difficult and I don't have much practice. So we'll see how it goes. I already fucked up. I missed my skill. What is wrong with me?
Excuse me. It was all...
Okay, well that was really, really scuffed, but I kind of did it. And you can see, the damage sucks, but I am getting a reaction every single time I hit. So if you'll excuse the horrendous showcasing, you can kind of understand the idea of charge level 1 Sethos. Even though those deal less damage, Sethos can pump them out faster, they each cost less energy, and they each still trigger Fischl's A4 passive. I didn't go over it before because it's more of an offshoot of his normal charge attack playstyle, and I can imagine a lot of people wouldn't want to do it. But it is a viable option that if you want to build a charge attack level 1 Sethos, you can build a charge attack level 1 Sethos. So I've been talking pretty much this entire video exclusively about Aggravate, and that's for a good reason. Sethos was very obviously built for Aggravate. His kit is best used in Aggravate. This entire time I've basically been making the case that his best use case is just proccing Fischl's Ascension 4. But you know, he's not completely unusable outside of Aggravate. He can do other stuff, and this is one of the other teams that I tried to cook up. Because Sethos is an EM scaler that applies a lot of his elements. Oof, God. Alright, I'm gonna have to take a step back. Because Sethos is an EM scaling driver, you can kind of just throw him into any team where he is triggering reactions, and he'll do fine enough, like this one. This is just a simple electro charge team. Where this is just a simple electro charge team where Sethos Sethos is clearly not dealing a large majority of damage in this team. He's dealing some, but he mostly is just there to be applying his element, get a little bit of electro charge damage, and drive Xingqiu's burst. And that also brings me back to what I said before. Why this is a win for burst Sethos is because Taser Sethos only really works if you use burst Sethos. Because your strongest Hydro off-fielders are going to be Xingqiu and Yelan, you're going to want someone who can do normal attacks in this slot. And would it surprise you if I told you that charged attack Sethos does not do normal attacks? Burst Sethos, while his damage still counts as charged attack damage, the game works in a weird way and it has all these stupid dumb rules. While it does convert the damage of his normal attacks to charged attack damage, meaning that it'll only benefit from buffs that give charged attack damage and not normal attack damage, they still are kind of half considered normal attacks because they can activate abilities like Xingqiu's Rain Swords or Yelan's, I don't even know what they are. Does she shoot like little strings at people? But you need someone who's doing normal attacks to drive their abilities. So generally in Taser, you're going to be using Burst Sethos. I tried a few other teams with stuff like Toma. That's where I was, testing the Emily things, but nothing really worked. But just know that even though they're considered charged attack damage, Sethos' infused normal attacks can still proc normal attack effects. That was most of what I wanted to talk about, so I think I'm just going to wander around with this last team that I would like to show off here. And the reason why I wanted to do this segment like this is that Sethos is very, very uniquely good in Overworld. If any of you have ever had Ganyu, you probably know what I'm talking about. I think, because I don't know, I don't have Ganyu. But really, the ability to just... ignore me because I have to do Pyro here because I'm doing a Shivers team. But the ability to have a long-range attack available at almost any time is just so convenient. I can't put a price on it. Whereas other characters, you have to mess around with energy generation and cooldowns and whatever. Sethos is so plug and play, and I know I said this a lot about Emily in the last video, but what can I say? I have a type. This team is also meant to show off that EM is not a useless stat. You build EM on Sethos because he has EM scalings in his talents, and also because, you're trying to hit high damage aggravates, which scale on EM. But in teams like this, he does okay damage on hit. But he also ends up, look at this, like 12 and 15,000 damage overloads. They're stronger than my charge shots. Even though I'm still not focused on his talent damage, I'm getting similar DPS. Because at a baseline, God, all his kit is meant to do is just, God damn, I suck at this game. All his kit is meant to do is just apply a lot of electro. Maybe I need to lock in. All his kit is meant to do is apply a lot of electro. And he's good in Aggravate because Aggravate is good when you apply a lot of electro. What is going on here? Okay, cool. I'm just gonna hang over here to talk. Aggravate is basically just the best outlet that we have when you apply a ton of electro. It'll give you the most bang for your buck. But him being able to just completely spam electro application is still a valuable thing even in non-dendro teams, as we can see here. Because he's able to apply so much electro, he can just keep getting overloads and get a ton of personal damage that way, added on to the damage that just comes from his talents. I also just got reminded of two potential fairly large buffs that Sethos is going to get in the next patch, really. For one, we have Auroron, who is going to be a pretty strong support for the electrocharged archetype. While it isn't really a buff for Sethos in any particular team, oh my god. These enemies are so goofy. I never realized that. While Auroron isn't really a buff for Sethos in particular, he's going to buff a lot of units. He will be another option that you can put in Sethos Electrocharge teams. Won't be the best, but he'll be fine.
Out of the way or get blown away.
Additionally, the more important thing, she did it again, is that a lot of reactions are getting their base damage multiplied. So the stuff that I'm talking about here, where he's able to get a significant amount of damage from his overloads, like that. I did 5,000 with my skill and 12,000 with the overload. Because their base damage is getting buffed, he's just going to be able to do that even better. His overloads are going to be doing more damage. And that also helps him break out of Dendro-only teams, so I guess it's good that I put these last two at the end, but frankly, I suspect that his best teams will all still just be Dendro. And I think that's everything that I want to talk about with Sethos. Good luck to everyone building him. I'm so glad that you stayed around to watch this whole video. If you liked it, you can do the YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe. Hope your Nahida and Hu Tao pulls went well, and happy Sethosing, everybody! I was recording something else, but I just came across this. These guys who are just chilling. What happens when I get close? Okay, now they're normal. But that was cool.